some wonderful memories. Visualize that hill without any houses on it, and then the sun. We basically built all our own buildings. On the hill would be the horses. Knocked our other gym down. Roof came flying off. So there is a tunnel underneath that main road, and we all had our ice skates here with us. And the boys, they thought they were really modern. They'd climb up in the trees and put a field hockey to America, pretending that we were fancy skaters. Who was the man on campus. And eventually I got to know it was taken up with the computer. The computer was huge. When I was here, you couldn't see houses. So wonderful memories of Sanford. The building was built in 1968 and 69. We opened in September of 69 with our opening ceremonies of the building. We also had, back in 68, I remember the groundbreaking for the building. Sons had 6 children, and Nancy was the number 4 of the children. She was here for 36 years as a teacher, an administrator, coach. Nancy pretty much did everything along the way. She did everything from doing the most academic things to riding the tractor and plowing and whatever. She was a very, very good coach. She was my hockey coach. And she was on the U.S. hockey team, and she was truly a person where no talent lied latent. Her mother was a little different personality than Nancy. Nancy was more of a, let's get the thing done. And she wanted to prove herself in many ways, and she was very talented with that ethic. And this building was named for her at the time, at the dedication, by the choice of the Board of Trustees. The DuPont Library was built before this, and by the same architect, and he had it facing the quad. And then the little road came down in front, and it was a auto road. And then as the school got larger, the road was too close to the building, and we've now made it a pedestrian road, which is quite the right thing to do. But when people would go out of it, I mean, right there, a car might be coming down, or a truck from the kitchen or something. And this building was also, on the architect's plans, facing the road. It was facing middle school. But I complained and said that the library, when you go in the library, there's a lovely library and all the windows and everything, but when you go down in the basement, it always feels like a basement. You're going down into the basement. And I thought it would be nicer to have the entry door to the math science be at the lower level, and that is the lower level, and it's an open level, and then this is the second floor that we're on now. But the way the architect had it was that you would come in off the road right behind the math science building, and then you'd go downstairs into the science labs. When this building was built, we had a meeting with all the teachers and find out what we want. We went out to a number of schools. St. Andrews had just built a new science, and I believe it was they who had the windows between the offices and the classroom. Now, when you don't have windows there, a faculty member, if someone had to make up a lab, you really should have someone there observing so they don't by mistake blow up something or that, you know, or if they drop something or anything happens. And so with that window right there, the teacher can be keeping their eye on, and it goes, if you go into Mr. Dagenet's office, you can look into either of those rooms. And so it was things like that that we came back with, and then we wouldn't agree to sign a architect unless he was willing to at least listen to our ideas. And I was adamant that the building should face the pond. So I went into the architect, and he was the designer of the building, and his wife, Victorine DuPont, Sam Holmesy was his name. He was the architect. He did more of how the design and everything. And Nancy Sawn had said to him, when we build this building, I don't want square or rectangular rooms. I want the teachers to be more creative, and so let's have something other than square or rectangle. I don't want it to look like, just any school's classroom. And I also don't want the classrooms to be too big, because I don't think the classes at Sanford should ever have more than 16 people. And so that's one reason the classrooms in this building are smaller. And I would agree with that, but I was adamant. And I was a young teacher. I didn't have any voice or anything. And I said, Nancy, it really should face the pond. And then instead of having the back wall of the library is basically just the back wall, like the back of a theater when it's just all bricks. And coming in here, it would be nice to come into a nice, open, airy room that it is downstairs. Well, she was adamantly opposed, and I kept bugging her. And of course, she had the power, and I had none, and et cetera. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to get fired on this one. But I was so sure that I was right. She said, finally said, well, Jackie, one day, if you really feel that strong about it, you go speak to the architect. So here I am, a young teacher. Mr. Holmesy, may I have an appointment with you at some time? So I went into his office about a week later, and he said, what may I do for you, Jackie? And I said, well, Nancy and I are having a disagreement, and I would like you to hear my point of view and see what you think. So I told him the story that I'd like the building turned around. I said, furthermore, as the school gets bigger, the road going right behind, it's going to be more traffic going out, the lower school going out, the kids coming out. I was just adamantly opposed to the way it was designed. And he said, well, if you were to do it that way, how would the circulation go? And I went, circulation? To me, that's air, that it would go, just like it would. And I would say, well, do you mean the circulation of air? Oh, no. I mean people. He said, upstairs it would be a problem. And I said, if that were the back, and I said, well, no, we could have the hallway here and this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. And just then, his wife, who was really the brains of the group, and she did all the technical end, she didn't do the artistic end, and she said, well, hello, Jackie. And I said, hello, Mrs. DuPont. And she said then, why is Jackie here? To Sam. Sam, why is Jackie here? And he said, well, we're having this discussion about, and he started to explain it, and she asked a question, and she turned to him and said, Jackie's absolutely right. You turn that building around. We'll take it back to Nancy. So I got the building turned around. One reason we got as much funding as we did was because it was when our federal government was beginning to get more important in outer space, and science was really, and so I think that helped us in many ways move ahead with this project. At the time, it was the most expensive project we had ever done. Other thing is that our science lab before this was in Albright Hall. Albright Hall was built to be a high school building. And when I was a student, we helped build, my class helped build Albright Hall. I can even show you where my bricks are that I laid. But then when we moved, then we had, before that, the science lab had been in the basement of Stephen May. And also another place was we had a little Bavarian sort of, it was a snack bar at once, and it was turned into a science lab. And that's about where the nurse's office is now. But it was a huge step in terms of, now we had a math and science building, we had an English and history building, so I think in a lot of ways it was a huge step forward for Sanford.